Welcome, dear listener. Tonight, I invite you to leave behind the noise of your day. Let the weight of your thoughts gently drift away like clouds passing across a twilight sky. Find a comfortable position now. Allow your body to sink into whatever surface supports you. You are safe here. You are held. And tonight, I will tell you a story about a lighthouse keeper named Thomas, a man who spent 60 years guiding ships through darkness. A man who learned that the greatest storms we face are often the ones within ourselves. And on this, his final night in the lighthouse, he discovered something beautiful about letting go. Take a slow, deep breath with me now. Breathe in through your nose, filling your lungs completely. Hold it gently for just a moment, and release it slowly through your mouth. Let that exhale carry away any tension you might be holding. Good. Now settle in and let my voice guide you to a windswept shore where waves meet ancient stone. The lighthouse stood at the edge of Cape Serenity, perched upon black volcanic rocks that had watched the sea for 1,000 years. It was a tall structure, painted white with a single red band around its center. Its light had swept across these waters since the year 1893, and for the last 60 of those years, that light had been tended by one man. Thomas, he was 82 years old now, with a face carved by salt wind and eyes the color of the sea on a calm morning. His hands were weathered but steady. His heart was full of memories. Tonight was different from every other night Thomas had spent in this tower. Tonight was his last. Tomorrow, the lighthouse would be automated. Sensors and computers would take over the ancient task of warning ships away from the rocky shore. And Thomas would finally leave the only home he had ever truly known. He climbed the spiral staircase as he had done every evening for 6 decades. 147 steps. He knew each one by heart. The 3rd step creaked slightly to the left. The 29th had a small chip in its iron edge. The 76th always felt warmer than the others, touched by sunlight through a small window. His legs moved through the familiar rhythm without complaint. At the top, Thomas entered the lamp room. The great lens surrounded him like a crystal cathedral. Hundreds of glass prisms arranged in perfect circles, designed to catch light and throw it across the sea. This was a Fresnel lens, named after the French physicist who invented it. But to Thomas, it had always seemed more like a living thing, something that breathed and pulsed with purpose. He began his evening ritual. First, he inspected the glass for any specks or smudges. Even a small impurity could scatter the beam. He polished each panel with a soft cloth, moving slowly, deliberately. There was no rush tonight. There would never be a rush again. Then he checked the oil reservoir that fed the light. Even though the lighthouse had been converted to electricity decades ago, he still checked. Old habits are the hardest to release. As darkness settled over the cape, Thomas lit the lamp. Not with a match, as his grandfather had done, but with the flip of a switch. The bulb inside the lens blazed to life, and the prisms caught that light and multiplied it, focused it, sent it streaming out across the gathering night. The beam swept in a slow circle, one complete rotation every 8 seconds. Flash, darkness, darkness, darkness. Flash, darkness, darkness, darkness. A heartbeat of light in the vast dark. Thomas watched the first sweep reach out over the water. The sea tonight was calm, almost unnaturally still, a sheet of dark glass stretching to the horizon. Above it, the first stars were appearing. One by one, they pricked through the deepening blue like tiny lighthouses of their own. Each one a beacon, each one calling across distances too vast to comprehend. He settled into his worn leather chair by the window. This chair had molded itself to his body over the decade. It knew the shape of him, the particular way he shifted his weight, the angle at which he liked to rest his head. As he sat, memories began to rise like the tide. He thought of his first night in this lighthouse. He had been 22 years old then, young and eager, and a little bit afraid. His predecessor, old Captain Morrison, had shown him the ropes, had taught him how to read the weather and the color of the sky, how to listen to the wind for warning, how to tend the light with reverence. The light is not just a tool, Morrison had told him. It is a promise that someone is watching, that someone cares whether the ships make it home. Thomas had carried that promise in his heart ever since. He remembered the storms, hurricanes that bent the lighthouse like a reed in the wind, thunder that shook the very stones beneath his feet, lightning that turned night into day, rain that fell so thick he could not see his own hand before his face. But the light never went out, not once in 60 years, not on his watch. He remembered the shipwreck of 53. A cargo vessel called the Helena Marie had lost its way in a fog so dense it seemed solid. Thomas had heard her foghorn crying in the white darkness, had heard the panic in its blast. He had climbed to the lamp room and increased the intensity of the beam. He had sounded the lighthouse horn in response. "I am here," the horn called. "Follow me. Find your way." And the Helena Marie had found her way. She passed so close to the rocks that Thomas could see the captain's face. A young woman with dark hair and terrified eyes. But she made it through. She made it home. Years later, that same captain had come to visit him. Her name was Clara, and she had brought her daughter, a bright-eyed girl of 7 who wanted to see the lighthouse. Clara had taken Thomas's weathered hand in both of hers. "You saved us," she said. "You and your life." Thomas had simply nodded. "It is what the light is for," he replied. Now, sitting in his chair on this final night, Thomas felt a gentle ache in his chest. Not sadness exactly. Something deeper. Something bittersweet. He was grateful for every storm he had weathered, every ship he had guided, every sunrise he had witnessed from this tower. But he was also ready to rest, ready to let go. The night deepened around him. The temperature dropped slowly, steadily. The lighthouse hummed its familiar song, the quiet whir of the motor that turned the lens, the gentle creak of old boards settling, the distant whisper of waves far below. Thomas let his eyes drift closed for a moment. Behind his eyelids, he saw the ocean of his memory. All the nights blended together now, all the storms and calms and everything in between. They had become one great sea, and he was floating on it, held by it, carried gently toward some distant shore. A soft sound brought him back, a tapping at the window of the lamp room. He opened his eyes and saw a small bird perched on the outer ledge, a storm petrel, dark and delicate, with wings that could carry it across entire oceans. It must have been attracted by the light, but instead of circling in confusion, it simply sat there, looking in at him with one bright eye. "Hello, little traveler," Thomas said softly. "Are you resting too?" The bird tilted its head as if considering the question. Then it fluffed its feathers and settled more comfortably on the ledge. Two wayfarers, Thomas thought, both finding shelter in the light. He thought about the nature of light itself, how it traveled so far, how it moved at speeds beyond comprehension, how it could cross the vacuum of space for billions of years and still arrive to touch a human eye. Light was the oldest traveler in the universe, and yet it never grew tired, never stopped moving, never lost its way. Perhaps, Thomas thought, we are all made of light in some way. Perhaps that is what the soul is, a small flame that travels through the darkness of existence, seeking others, connecting, illuminating. He liked that thought. It comforted him. The hours passed slowly, peacefully. The beam continued its eternal rotation. Flash, darkness, darkness, darkness. Flash, darkness, darkness, darkness. The storm petrel eventually flew away, disappearing into the night to continue its own journey. Thomas wished it well. Around midnight, the wind began to pick up. Not strongly, not dangerously, just enough to make the lighthouse speak. Its voice was deep and resonant, a humming that seemed to come from the very stones. Thomas had learned to love that voice. It had been his companion through so many long nights, his friend when the isolation grew heavy. The wind carried salt and the promise of distant rain. Thomas could smell it, could feel it in his bones. A storm was coming, but it was still far away. Perhaps it would arrive tomorrow or the day after. By then, he would be gone. The automated systems would handle it. But he hoped they would do so with the same care he had always tried to give. He rose from his chair and walked a slow circle around the lamp room. His hand trailed along the brass railing that encircled the lens. The metal was cool and smooth, polished by decades of his touch. Every surface in this room held his history. Every scratch and wear mark told a story. On the wall near the stairs hung a small photograph in a simple frame. It showed a young couple standing in front of the lighthouse. The woman had flowers in her hair. The man wore a proud smile. Thomas and his wife, Elena, on their wedding day. They had been married right here, on the rocks below the tower. The lighthouse had been their witness. Elena had lived with him in the keeper's cottage for 43 years. She had tended the garden while he tended the light. She had cooked their meals and mended his clothes. She had read to him on quiet evenings and held him through the difficult nights. She had understood his devotion to the lighthouse, had never asked him to choose between her and his duty, because she knew that his duty was part of who he was, and she loved all of him. Elena had passed away 7 years ago, quietly, peacefully, in her sleep. Thomas had found her in the morning, her face relaxed into a gentle smile, as if she had been dreaming of something beautiful. He had buried her in the small cemetery on the hill behind the cottage. From her grave, she could see the lighthouse. He visited her every day, told her about the weather, about the ships that passed, about how much he missed her. Tonight, before climbing the stairs, he had stopped at her grave one last time. I am leaving tomorrow, he had told her, but I will be back to visit you. I promise. The wind had rustled through the grass around her stone, and Thomas had chosen to believe it was her answer. Now, in the lamp room, he touched her photograph gently. Thank you, he whispered, for everything. The night grew older. The stars wheeled slowly overhead. The moon rose, a thin crescent like a silver smile. Its light made the sea shimmer with countless tiny reflections, each one a miniature moon dancing on the waves. Thomas returned to his chair and let himself drift, not quite asleep, but not fully awake either. He floated in that peaceful space between, where thoughts become softer, where worries dissolve like morning mist, where the boundary between self and world grows thin. In this gentle state, he saw visions, not frightening ones, beautiful ones. He saw the lighthouse as it had been when it was first built, fresh and new, its stone unworn. He saw the keepers who had come before him, stretching back through generations, men and women who had climbed these same stairs, who had tended this same flame, who had made the same promise to the sea. He saw them forming a chain, hand to hand, reaching back through time. And he was the latest link, but not the last. The chain would continue, even without a human keeper. The promise would endure. The light would go on. This thought brought him peace. Deep, settled peace. Like a stone coming to rest on the ocean floor, he let his breath slow, let his heartbeat find its most natural rhythm. Let every muscle in his body relax completely, from his feet to his legs, from his legs to his hips, from his hips to his belly, from his belly to his chest, from his chest to his shoulders, from his shoulders down through his arms to his fingertips, from his shoulders up through his neck to his face, every part of him growing heavy, heavy and warm, sinking into the chair, sinking into the moment, sinking into peace. The beam swept on. Flash, darkness, darkness, darkness. Flash, darkness, darkness, darkness. A lullaby of light. He thought about what tomorrow would bring. His nephew was coming to help him move his belongings. Just a few boxes, some books, some photographs, his grandfather's brass telescope, the chair he was sitting in now. He would go to live with his nephew's family in the village. They had prepared a room for him with a window that faced the sea. At night, he would be able to see the lighthouse beam from his bed. He would never truly leave this place. It would always be with him, and he would always be with it. The small cottage where he and Elena had made their life would be preserved. The Historical Society had promised it would become part of the Lighthouse Museum. Visitors would learn about the keepers who had lived there. Their stories would be remembered. This mattered to Thomas, not for his own sake, but for Elena's, for all the keepers who came before. Their lives had meaning. Their dedication deserved to be honored. The night continued its slow passage. Around 3 in the morning, Thomas noticed something on the horizon. A ship, a large container vessel, judging by its lights. It was heading north, following the shipping lane that passed the cape. The lighthouse beam swept across its hull, and Thomas imagined the crew inside. Perhaps some of them were sleeping in their bunks. Perhaps the night watch was drinking coffee in the bridge. Perhaps someone was looking out a porthole and seeing his light. Safe passage, Thomas whispered to them. May your journey be smooth. May you find your way home. The ship sailed on, its lights growing smaller. Eventually, it disappeared beyond the curve of the earth. But Thomas knew it was still out there, still traveling, still guided by stars and instruments and the ancient wisdom of those who had sailed before. He thought about all the ships he had watched pass over the years. Thousands of them, maybe tens of thousands. Each one a small world unto itself. Each one carrying people with their own hopes and fears, their own loves and losses, their own stories. He had been a part of all those stories, even if none of those people knew his name. He had been a small chapter in their journeys, a flash of light in their darkness, a reassurance that they were not alone. And now his own journey was coming to a close. Not ending, just changing, moving into a new phase. He welcomed it. The first hint of dawn appeared on the eastern horizon, a pale lightening of the darkness, a promise of the sun to come. Thomas watched it grow. The deep black of night softened to charcoal, then to gray, then to the first blush of pink. He had seen this transformation so many times, and yet it never lost its wonder. Each dawn was unique, each one a fresh beginning. Even on this, his final morning in the lighthouse, the sunrise was new. The light in the lamp room began to look different. Its beam grew less visible against the brightening sky. Soon it would be time to extinguish it for the day. One last time, Thomas rose from his chair. His body was stiff from the long night, but he did not mind. He walked to the lamp controls. For a moment, he simply stood there. His hand hovered over the switch. 60 years, he thought. 60 years of nights. And now, one final morning, he took a breath, held it, and flipped the switch. The lamp went dark. The lens stopped turning. The lighthouse fell silent. But outside, the world was coming alive. Seabirds began their morning calls. Waves continued their eternal conversation with the shore. The sun climbed higher, painting the clouds in shades of gold and rose. Thomas descended the spiral staircase for the last time. 147 steps, each one a goodbye. At the bottom, he paused in the doorway. He turned to look back up at the tower. It stood tall and proud against the morning sky, solid, enduring, beautiful. Thank you, he said aloud, for being my home, for being my purpose, for teaching me what it means to keep a promise. Then he stepped outside into the fresh morning air. The sea sparkled before him, countless points of light dancing on the water. A breeze carried the scent of salt and wild roses from Elena's garden. He walked slowly down the path toward the cottage. There was no hurry now. There would never be a hurry again. In the distance, he could see his nephew's car making its way along the coastal road. But that was still an hour away. He had time. Time to sit in Elena's garden one last time. Time to remember. Time to simply be. He found the small bench they had placed among the roses years ago. He sat down heavily, closed his eyes, Let the morning sun warm his face, and in that warmth he felt something unexpected. Joy, pure, simple joy. He had lived a good life. He had kept his promises. He had loved deeply and been loved in return. He had served something larger than himself. What more could anyone ask? The roses nodded in the breeze around him. Somewhere, a songbird sang. The lighthouse stood sentinel behind him, faithful as ever. And Thomas Bellwether, keeper of the light for 60 years, smiled. He was ready, ready for whatever came next, ready to trust that the light would go on, that the ships would find their way, that love and purpose and meaning would continue to shine in the darkness, because that is what light does. It does not ask whether it will be seen. It does not worry about the darkness. It simply shines, simply gives itself to the night, simply keeps its promise. And so can we all. Dear listener, wherever you are tonight, whatever storms you may be facing, know this: there is a light within you, a steady, faithful flame that cannot be extinguished. It may flicker, it may seem dim, but it is always there. And even when you cannot see the way forward, even when the darkness seems endless, that light is shining, guiding you, calling you home. So rest now. Let your body grow heavy with peace. Let your mind grow quiet. Let your heart rest in the knowledge that you are held. You are safe. You are loved. You are light. And like old Thomas in his lighthouse, you too have kept your promises. You have shown up for another day. You have cared for those who needed you. You have done your best. And that is enough. It is more than enough. So close your eyes now. Feel yourself sinking into warmth and comfort. Feel the gentle rhythm of your own breathing, in and out, slow and steady, like waves on a peaceful shore, like the sweep of a lighthouse beam. Flash. Rest, rest, rest. You are drifting now, drifting on a calm sea. The stars wheel slowly overhead. The moon smiles down at you, and somewhere in the distance, a light is shining. It is shining for you. It has always been shining for you, and it always will. Sleep well, dear one. Sleep deep, and may your dreams carry you to peaceful shores. Good night.